This is the Lean Construction Blogs Podcast, a podcast dedicated to stories, case studies, and lessons learned of applying lean construction from around the world. Join Dick Beyer as he interviews industry leaders, lean construction practitioners, and subject matter experts to help you improve the build environment in general and your design and construction projects in particular. Advance your lean journey and bring your continuous improvement efforts to the next level. Let's get started.
Well, good day, everybody. Welcome again to the leanconstructionblog.com podcast with Dick Beyer. That's me. I'm Dick Beyer. And joining me today is a good friend over many years, a fellow Chairman's Award winner from the Lean Construction Institute, a member of the board of the Lean Construction Institute, a long-time pre-construction and design kind of manager with Southland Industries, which is one of our trades that leads the way in lean thinking, and a general all-around good guy, Henry Nutt. Henry, say hi.
Hey, Dick. Thanks. Glad to be here today with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So you've had a long and interesting journey. I mean, you, other than a little bit of gray in your beard, you look like you were, just out of high school about 3 years ago. So tell us about your background. Where'd you grow up, and how'd you get into the tinsmith trade, as we call it?
Yeah. So I've been in the sheet metal trade for over 34 years, and by way of a father that was in the trade for over 20 years.
So he was a tinner as well.
He was. He worked in the shop, and when I was graduating from college or high school, he was advocating for the trade. You need to take the test, and I actually was going down a different path. I was going to be an engineer of some sort, and I decided that the worst could happen is I don't take the test and I don't go into the trade. But if I take the test, I can still choose to go one way or the other. So I listened to him and took the test, and had to make some quick life decisions because it happened like that. And the rest is history. I've been in ever since.
Wow.
Back in 1987.
That's probably a good story for folks these days, because there is especially in the States, not so much in Canada. Since I'm in Canada now, they have a 2-track system. Basically, colleges are mostly professions, or mostly, jobs that you can get, like a chef or a carpenter or a sheet metal guy, and university is mostly the, higher degrees. But in the States, there always seems to be a lot of pressure to go to that 4-year college, get your degree. And yet even before the infrastructure bill, there's a lot of people we need in the trades, and it's a pretty good living.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's something that, it's a big mission now, big effort from the unions that I work with, and all the affiliates of trying to reintroduce the idea of people choosing the trades as a viable option for a career path. We're definitely behind the curve in that, but getting the shop classes that used to exist, getting those different trades that come into the schools and do presentations, and then hopefully trying to transform the mindsets of parents that this is a viable option. It's not meant or designed for someone that can't go to college. So it's getting that conversation and kind of changing the narrative in regards to the esteem. And like you said, it's a great living. I've raised my family and I've done very well.
What's really interesting is that the direction that public education went in a few years ago, maybe a few decades ago, where they decided to concentrate on the STEM issues, science, technology, engineering, math, as a real focus. And we've lost music in schools. We've lost, theater groups. We've lost shop. I mean, I would have cut my fingers off several times during home projects if I hadn't taken wood shop back in the day. So I'm interested that we continue to kind of go down this line when there is so much room for us in the trades. So in your current role at Southland, so let's talk a little bit about your responsibility and kind of how you started. Did you start at Southland, or did you start someplace else? And how did you move over? And
Yeah.
who have been some of your mentors there?
Yeah, so I've been at Southland for about 15 years. It'll be officially 15 years in May of next year. And I came from another competitor where I spent 13 years there. So I've only been to a couple different shops in my career, but began that my career, I'd say, from a job to a career kind of transition was the prior company. And then I had some friends that worked for Southland that probably were kind of harassing me for 2 years to come over. And finally, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It really was more of an opportunity as a role as a superintendent. So I came from the field. I was the foreman, the general foreman at my former company, and then came here as a superintendent and ultimately became the general superintendent for sheet metal. So that's where my lean journey began, was with Southland. And just because of the DNA of our company, and it's what we've done for so many years, it was no way I would avoid that. So it was an introduction to lean at Southland, but it really kind of was a great marriage because how I did work and how I thought as a person, it really kind of coincided with my philosophy on how to do work. Want to be smarter and make better decisions and improve productivity and help people be safer, collaborate, all those kind of things. So it was really easy for me to transition into that. And there are several people here at Southland that were the champions that helped me, like Jessica Kelly and Mark Napier, just to name a couple people that really helped kind of introduce me to some of just the more the practicality parts of lean and how to really apply it to my work every day. So it's been a great experience for me, and I continue down that path with helping our folks, field related, office folks as well, really understand the value. And so I find myself involved in all types of things, and kind of how I got, it's actually the Pioneer Award that I got a few years back with LCI. And, my goal was not to get an award. It was really more to help people. And because I believe it, that was really the thing, is that I've spoken in front of thousands of people and done conferences and sessions and webinars, and people ask me, how do you do all that? And primarily it's because I believe it. It's really the simple thing is I believe in it, and I have been able to see people really grow from it and transform how their jobs are rolled out. And I take their stories, or I have my own stories, and really share this. Here are some of the things that work. Just keeping it simple,
Yeah, so I misspoke. I had forgotten it was the Pioneers Award. I thought it was the Chairman's Award, which is like saying that, oh, well, you got an Emmy when you really got an Oscar. So, I mean, that is pretty high company with Glenn and Greg to start with in the Pioneers Awards. That is really significant. And and now my fading memory goes, oh, that's right, Henry won the Pioneers Award. So that was fantastic. So when you moved from the first company, were they a design builder, or were they mostly just an installer?
They were a design builder. They're definitely a premier company. Still are, and we're in different markets to some degree, but not a lot of the whole embracing the lean and improving. I mean, they've got a lot of technology and innovative tools, and they're going to always be around. But I think it was folks that have transitioned up from there to here are just looking for something different. And I've learned so much at Southland. I think one of the things that was for my own personal goal of just improving and being able to kind of shape how work gets done and having a hand in it, and so I could have been doing a job, and been fine over there. But it's really becoming more a part of the fabric of what we do here, and having a say in how it gets done was more rewarding for me. It wasn't even about monies per se. It was really just about an opportunity to really help transform the industry. And I believe Southland puts that on its people. Say, hey, we give you the autonomy to really make decisions and be a leader in this game.
Well, it's funny, Daniel Pink, who's written a number of books, but my favorite one is Drive. He talks about what really gives people meaning in their lives at work. And I'm a huge believer that work actually really empowers people, and also disempowers people. I mean, there's lots of people who have bad work situations, but if you're in a really great work situation, he says that you're allowed some autonomy in what you decide you're going to do. You strive for mastery, and it fulfills a purpose in your life. And once you've got that, then Teresa Mirabli, who talks about that the healthy workplace, says that if you can look back every day on work that you've done well, you're a much healthier person. So it's kind of like the perfect confluence of both of those philosophies.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and
I think it's without even understanding that when I was doing it, I know that it helped me feel better, right? It's one of the things I felt better. I wanted to do more, and I wanted to get others involved, and I was encouraged and hopeful for what was possible. And that's the thing is there was not necessarily a roadmap for how to do it. It was you go pave the way, and that was inspiring, as well as giving you an opportunity to have some aspiration and how you navigate down the path. And some of it was discovery. So it was really cool to be able to kind of create something.
Yeah. So when you came over in 2008-ish?
Yeah, about 2007, yeah, roughly.
2007. So yeah, the Southland was already, moving in the lean direction. Victor Sambito, I think, was on the board or about to be on the board at LCI. I first met Victor at the California Prison Healthcare Receivership thing, where lots of people date their lean pedigree from. He and Kathy Copeland was up there, on the DPR team. And he always seemed to have like this really kind of orchestrated behind the scenes, we're going to make this happen, and I'm not going to let this thing fail. So I think you landed in a good spot, because you've got to have people who are leading the organization who believe in what it is that you're doing. They don't think of it as the flavor of the week. And it's funny, when I was at the Sheet Metal Apprentice in 1969 for J. Johnson and Sons in Denver, Colorado, I lasted about 4 months and was very happy to go to college after that. But it was so funny, because I got called from my foreman, who told me I had to be on a job at like 4 o'clock in the morning so we could stake out our hangers before the electrician got there, who he heard was going to be there at 5 in the morning. And I thought, wow, this is a really funny way to run a railroad.
Oh, wow.
So when you came over, and you transformed immediately from foreman to superintendent, what was it that you were supervising? What was that you were? Because I tend to think of, I'm a great believer that the people that actually do the work are the real heroes on our jobs, and everybody else is like a servant leadership there.
Yep.
So when you were superintendent for sheet metal, what did that look like at Southland that was different than what you had expected out there in the
that's such a great question for me. It has so many layers to it, because when I came on, that was the question for me, asking my vice president at the time, is what is the expectation? I'm this person that overanalyzes everything, and I want to understand so I can know how to set my goals, right? And there was not a roadmap, right? So it was the one thing that I was told is that you're not going to run projects anymore. You're not overseeing a project. You're now managing labor. And so it's a difference. So the one thing about a project, it doesn't talk back, it doesn't have its own opinion. People do, right? So you're going to have to deal with different, personality styles and people who, have opinions, and you're going to have to shepherd them along to help identify who the right people are, and then help them navigate through the projects to a success. So it was definitely something different for me in just having a project and tackling how to make sure this project is successful. It was now helping the people who are running the project to make it successful. So I spent a lot of time getting to know people. That was like the first year of my job. A lot of people that were here didn't know me. So think, you all of a sudden you get a new boss that shows up from another company, and everyone's nervous. Everyone thinks, well, how long do I have? They're going to fire me, and so I had to really, I had one person that stopped me, had been here for a long time. And I knew him from another company, and he finally pulled me to the side and just assumed that his days were numbered. And I assured him that my objective was not to find out who to fire. It was really to learn who people were, understand who they are, where they needed help, how I could provide that support, and then help them be more successful. It was to help them win. And it took about a year for people to really believe that was true, because in our industry, that's not the way it works. In our industry, it is kind of cutthroat, and let me find out who the weakest link is and get rid of them, versus let me see if I can help someone get strengthened and fortified in an area of weakness. And obviously everyone can't, it's not going to fit that bill, but the objective was to really help people get better at what they did every day and provide resources and support so that they can function as professionals in their roles. And there was a partnership there. So as you mentioned, the people who do the work are the most important. And my role was to make sure that, one, they got the credit for what they did, supported them, and made sure that I was behind the scenes advocating and giving them what they need to pull their jobs off every day successfully. So it was a paradigm shift for many of them because that's not what they were used to. But it's something that I knew that I was good at. And if nothing else, I knew how to work with people. So that came kind of naturally. And then it was just a matter of taking some of that mindset and with some other resources and skill sets to really make that work here at Southland.
It really is, we always talk about the paradigm shift between, a lean operating system and kind of traditional command and control. But the paradigm shift is also in how you treat people and how you try to, but leadership really tries to, leadership doesn't say, well, that's crazy, go do this, right? Leadership says, well, how can I help you, get your job done? What needs to be done and how can I help? So I think that's I think that is what marks, the truly great leaders. I don't know if you've got the Lean Builder on your shelf there. I see some black and white books.
Yeah.
But I had Kean Zandy on a couple of weeks ago, and his story about, bringing home a project, kind of like Billy Crystal in whatever that movie about the cattle drive was,
Oh, yeah.
City Slickers, I think.
Yeah.
About bringing in this project where he worked 75 days in a row and he got a call from the namesake of the company and the president, and he got a big check for phase one. And the second phase he brought in without all that craziness because he just worked to make sure that it was going to be very predictably delivered. And that came in under budget and under time, and he never got, anything. And that's the paradigm shift I think we're looking for is, these things don't have to be crazy chaotic all the time. You can actually understand how projects are delivered, and you can create a production plan that allows you to deliver them and still go to your kids' soccer games,
Correct. And that's such again, it's not the way that this industry has operated. And so you see more and more of that. And yeah, that is definitely the Lean Builder behind me that you see. And Joe and Keon are good friends of mine. And I believe in what they're trying to accomplish. And I think it just aligns. There's some key people out there that I highly respect, such as yourself, and just really understanding how important it is for to take our leadership to that level and help people just understand that, one, let's raise the bar on what we do in the field every day. I think construction as a whole has been considered like the second class citizen kind of pool of people that couldn't go to school, right? So this is what you do because you couldn't make the grades in college or high school. And we've accepted that. And because of that, then we give license to how we function on the job. Like somehow we're Neanderthals and we don't know how to, fit in society, and we scream and yell at women and all these different things that we've done over the years, and it's been acceptable behavior. Whereas we now consider ourselves as professionals, like anyone else that would have the title of professional tennis player or doctor, and they are held in higher esteem and because of the type of service that they deliver. When you ask a trade person how much money they will be responsible for over the life of their career that will flow through their hands and 1 or 5 companies they may work for in their lifetime, millions and millions of dollars, and sometimes greater than that. So how do you not consider that being a professional when you're responsible for multi-million-dollar projects and you are indeed responsible for the success or failure of that project or projects? And so I believe as we raise that guard of what we do and how we do it, and put more of that labeling of being a professional in our craft, because not everyone can do what we do, and it takes a lot of learning and practice and failures to get there. And so I think as we shift that mindset and really understand what we do and how we do it, I think we can do it better. I think we can do it more collaboratively. I think we aren't looking to get into a job site at 4 to beat the electrician, right? I think we can come in at the same time and figure out, using tools and behaviors that help us mesh and each other win on the project. So, it's I know it hasn't taken off across the whole country, but it definitely, I see it more, and it's promising that you see and you hear people talking about it, writing books about it, and knowing that they're getting the message out there to try to get people to see it doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah, and it's not just in the States, right? I mean, it is an international movement. People are doing it, all over from every culture. So it's not a culturally specific thing, that when Womack and Jones wrote Lean Thinking, that was their undertaking, was to find out whether, is this lean thinking stuff endemic to just Japanese culture, or is it expandable everywhere? And they found, and the evidence since then has certainly underscored it, that it is applicable everywhere. Just about thinking about delivering value, and waste just seems to kind of shed itself, if you're focused on value. So it's funny what you say about, doctors especially. So think of a pulmonologist who is world renowned for being able to do a lung transplant. And yet a mechanic, a sheet metal guy, is responsible for allowing buildings to breathe every single day so that they don't hurt people and they enhance people's living experiences. I just think how important that is. Certainly in my perspective, I've always thought that was absolutely the most important thing. So you got to Southland, you start off as a superintendent, you're moving through your lean journey. You said it took about a year to kind of get your sea legs, I guess. And from then, what did you start to do? What were the first things that you began to tweak when people said, oh, well, this is just the way that we've always done this? What were the things that you started to look at that you went, okay, well, maybe it's always the way we did it, but doing something that we shouldn't be doing efficiently is like the biggest waste ever.
Yeah.
So what did you start to tackle?
Well, one of the things that I tackled first was my relationship, the construction side of our business, with the operations side. So it's the project managers that are actually out there who are financially responsible for those projects, and kind of trying to bring that wall, those silos down between the two. It was this us and them kind of mentality, or working along with the shop and the field, and identifying the silos and trying to promote the ideas that we're one team, and how do we do things together to not point fingers at one another and learn lessons and then take those lessons forward. So it was really an extension of a hand going out and trying to identify what the problems were and how we address those problems. So I would go and talk with probably those folks who've been around longer than I have in the company, and have kind of had a mindset of this is how we do it, and listen to them and take away what I could. And then more importantly, they gave me a project manager would give me kind of an idea of a snapshot of something that would occur that was problematic for them. And so instead of promising, hey, well, I'm going to do this from now on, it was really then going to the field leadership team and talking to them about some of those problems and how we can tweak what we do to make that project come in and have a better alignment or communication with the team. And so the marketing of that idea and concept, and getting buy-in from, say, a project manager who was just like, no, I don't believe you, was to help transform that field leadership team. And so when they saw that foreman or that field leader beginning to function in a way that they hadn't seen, or taking responsibility, or looking to be collaborative or proactive, and not being a victim to all these different scenarios, right? That is what I believe people begin to see, that we mean business, we're going to act professionally, we're going to do our due diligence to bring the jobs in, we're going to be responsible for what we are responsible for, and not become victims to a general contractor or some scheduled conflict. We're going to stay engaged and provide solutions and just really step up our game. And so some of the critics of it became my spokespersons because they became believers at some point, So I look for those folks who say, this is the way I've done it my whole career. Why would I change? And so taking those, those types of opportunities to help those folks really re-identify how they did their work, find out a few little things, not change the whole thing, but always started with a question, always wanting to understand why they did what they did and learn from that instead of telling them that they were doing it wrong. It was really listening and then trying to present questions about how and if and what if we did this and could this make your life better? And it was always tied to how it could make them better and benefit them. And that's really the sell when for those hard knocks folks that don't want to change.
Well, and that's one way I think you communicate that you actually care about what they do every day, as opposed to just getting work done, right? You care
Right.
about how they do it and how it makes them feel and whether it's the right thing or not. And I think it also underscores the real importance of aha moments. I mean, we talk about, aha moments that you get when you play maybe the make a card game or something. You finally see big batching versus small batching. But the importance of those aha moments on the job are that's the teacher, I think, in our community, is when somebody comes to that. You can tell them, you can yell at him, you can push him, you can do everything. But when the horse finds out that it's easier for them just to walk across the creek than to be pulled, that's when transformation happens, which I think is so cool in our business.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important of all the different events and venues and webinars and podcasts, and they're like sprinkling seeds out there. And you don't know when someone is ready, their seed is ready to germinate, and it's been fertilized and all these different things that have happened to finally get it to a point where they are able to have their aha moment. And the great thing about that aha moment is that it's yours and it's not coerced. It happens when it needs to happen. And the great thing about it is that because it's yours, you're not looking ever to go back, and you begin your whole journey in that area, whether you've been in the business for 30 years or you're just starting out in it. We all can have that moment where we finally connect the dots and recognize there is a better way and I want to be a part of it.
And I think that's what I think of myself really in essence is a teacher. But I think the greatest skill is my partner, Dan Fauché, started off life as a pastor. And it's so clear that he was a pastor because he's such an effective listener and he's so empathetic with people that it's a real treat to be around somebody who just, you feel like you have all of their attention and all they care about is listening to you and helping you. And I think it's a really wonderful trait.
Dan is awesome, and yeah, he's one of my favorite people, and I can identify, and I don't really tell people this much because I don't do it anymore, but I was actually a pastor for many years.
Oh, wow.
Another life, but for many years, and I was primarily dealing with youth. So when I talk to Dan, you're absolutely right, and you when you're in his presence, you feel like you are his captive audience, and there's just a thing about him of you feel this connection and you want to listen and learn and hear what he has to say too, so it's definitely an art to that, and I do believe that listening and asking people questions and then tuning into what they're saying and also what they're not saying to understand how you move next with them, and just like a homework assignment, essentially you become a student of that person so that you learn how you learn them so you can understand how to be more effective in what you are supporting or helping them with.
Yeah, because it really is, when we talk about a journey, and I've said this before, I always think of a journey as like getting on a bus in Mexico with a bunch of people with chickens in the boxes and, luggage on top of the bus and rumbling down a road. And yet our lean experiences are mostly built around aha moments, teachings, understanding things that you have seen, having a low associative barrier where you look over in the left-hand corner and you associate it with something in the upper right-hand corner of the ceiling, that suddenly you make these connections. And I think that's what's really phenomenal about the lean experience, at least in my life. So tell us about some of the great innovations. I mean, you've shared with me some amazing innovations that just seem so simple. And I go, I could have had a V8 or something. But share some of the big things that you and your team have come up with. I know you well enough that you'll never take credit for these things, but what are the innovations that you've seen that have unveiled themselves to you and your team over time?
Yeah, one that stands out probably has happened probably more than 10 years ago, and it was a data center, and we had these louvers that we had to hang, and they were probably in banks of their 40 foot wide by say a little over 11 feet tall, and the louvers were maybe 3-4 feet wide. And one of our project engineers at the time, he was a new PE for our division, and he had an idea, and he said, "Hey, can we prefab these louvers?" And a bunch of my GFs and field workers there are like, "No, it's never been done before. We can't do that." So they completely just shut it down, right? So I said, well, let's wait. Let's go take a walk out to the site. Let's go out there and check it out, see what he's talking about. So we walk out there, we look at it, and we say, I say at this time, why can't we do this? And again, it was that, well, we've never done it before, and this is how it's always done. And I said, let's give it a try. I said, let's figure out how we do this, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But let's give it an effort and see. Let's come up with a plan and figure out how we can make this a first time for all of us. And so with some resistance, they begin it, and I think my only role was to make sure they were accountable to someone to do it, to give it a try and not say, well, we tried it and it failed. So they knew that I was going to watch and understood how it should work. So by the time that they get these things going, they had worked out a deal with the manufacturer, distributor, of how they were going to receive them. They set up a station in our shop where they had one person that was sectioning them together, have them wrapped in styrofoam to protect them. And then they built this wheel to clamp onto the back of the louvers and then winch them up the side of a building. And they would leverage on the edge of the building and then bring them in, and someone was inside connecting them. So they took this idea of we can never do it, it's never been done before, to not only doing it, but innovating it along the way as they were doing it, and they were so excited about it, just that team. And it was just an amazing thing to see. And it sparked everybody's kind of, creative juices to see what they had did by just trying something different. So that was one innovation that was pretty cool. That I think, again, it didn't come from any of us. It came from a PE that has never done it before and was willing to say, hey, can you guys give us a try? And all they needed was someone to say, yeah, let's try it.
And is it now standard operating procedure for louvers that you do that inside your shop? Did you carry that knowledge forward?
So what we'll do now is, so yes and no. We because that was a specific type of job that had these louver banks, which aren't always what you normally see. There's maybe one big one versus a bunch of them you stack together. So one of the things that we're able to do out of that we carry forward is how we order materials. And so there's a lot of materials that we would get in single pieces that would require a lot of extra work from the field once it got here. And now we can order things in different ways where some of that work has been done for us. So when it arrives, it's ready to set, and so it saves time. And one of the things that is a pushback is, oh, they're taking away our work, right? Especially, they're taking our work away. And so you have to get people to understand the big picture. And it's about being competitive. It's about being innovative. It's about saving costs for our owners and clients. And my argument back was always, if we don't do it these new ways, we don't have a job to save because we won't have the job. Somebody else will get it. So it's really helping them to understand that. So we took that idea, and now what we've moved forward with our vendors is we look at opportunities for them to do certain things. So when the equipment arrives to our sites, it's already put in a position where we don't have all those parts and pieces to assemble anymore. So that's the one idea that we extracted from that.
Yeah, I've seen that in the lighting industry, where you call up the factory and you have them load the lights in a certain way, so that as you're unloading them, they're installed. So instead of putting the nuts and bolts on the top of the package, they're at the bottom as things come out and they fit together and the assembly goes up.
Yep.
It just happens in exactly that sequence. And one of the things that I have seen superintendents for general contractors or executives from general contractors or other people think about productivity as you're doing your work too slow, as opposed to you're doing your work just fine, but look at all the space between your work and the next guy. And if you can compress that space, when we play the make a card game, I think you've played that before, right? You take these little dots off of a plastic piece of paper and put them on a 3x5 index card.
Yeah.
And you go from making 6 cards in the first round to making 90 cards in the third round. And you haven't gotten any better at taking those dots off the paper and putting them on the card. What you have done is you have decreased the space between all the other work that happens, right, so that you're actually in a flow. So I'm a big advocate of looking at how we decrease the spaces between work that are the unnecessary things, like the unpacking. I mean, I loved an example that you had of creating a toilet rack in the shop, unpacking the toilets in the shop, putting them on a truck and taking them to the site on a roller. So you just roll them in and install them. And there's no cardboard on the site. It's just, all of that stuff helps us get rid of that 100 trucks that deliver things to sites and 37 trucks right behind it that take stuff away.
Yeah, and that story was a gentleman that had no concept about lean either. And he was just, again, one of those folks around our team, hearing ideas. And one day he had his own aha moment. And he sent me an email with pictures, with an excited story along with it, telling me what he had just did. And it simply was, one of the pictures was just a boatload of cardboard that was sitting in the recycle dumpster. And so I would always start the story out, well, yeah, this looks like just a bunch of trash. Why is it even worth talking about? And I gave that background story about what he had did in regards to creating this rack and putting all these fixtures and taking all the parts and pieces that go along with that and setting them in this rack, installing what he could, or then putting them in a baggie in an individual sink or lavvy, and then all the cardboard that was not going to go down the road and then end up in the dumpster somewhere and create another job for somebody to do, to take them off the elevators, and and that whole cycle of stuff is not only waste, literally physical waste, but then you also have that motion waste of doing work that someone else, has to go and perform that task that could be doing something like learning how to be a better mechanic. And so he was just very excited about that. And that was, again, something that we continue to do and look for opportunities, always things on wheels, and really the next kind of venture is really more the collaborative with modular things, how we can work with other trades to put things together, so we have people that are out there walking sites and saying, hey, look at these hangers going down this hot congested hallway. What could we do here to get other crafts involved on a rack, and how do we make this possible? So just always keeping our eyes open to different opportunities and never being satisfied with how we just did it,
Well, you raised a really great point, because common trade racking is one of my go-to first ideas right out of the box. But it does require a horizontal distribution system as opposed to a vertical strategy, right? So, and it requires that all the other trades collaborate. So you get to Southland, you've got it figured out for your teams. You're very focused, 3-4 years down the road, you got everybody hitting on every cylinder, and then you run into the recalcitrant electrician or the framer who is just doing piecework, right? The wallboard guy just hires piece workers who want to just get in there and put this stuff up as fast as possible. And they don't care about any kind of last planner idea, that there's a handoff between you and them. So how did you evangelize Father Henry?
Great question. I think it comes down to what we talked about before is the relationship building. So building that trust between those folks that, again, haven't done it, and why should they listen to me? So it's creating a bridge for that opportunity to even happen. So you don't come into a meeting where you're contentious, and you're fighting about what you don't want to do or what you want to do. You're actually having a conversation about what you can do and how it's going to benefit them. And then building a project where you get an owner and a general contractor that support the idea, and almost to the degree where, hey, this is what we're going to do. And so we're hiring partners that understand this, even if you haven't done it before, even if you feel like your labor pool is not going to, collaborate and walk down the path with us. It's, no, here's what we're trying to achieve and how it's going to benefit the team, not just one individual or company. So it was taking those folks that hadn't done it and then really helping them to understand how we were partners. We're going to help you be successful. Here's how your work affects us, and help us understand how what we do affects you. So we take a framer that traditionally will lay out, their work on the floor, and we come by and spray our parts, and they have openings. And then we have this model. That has all this information and intelligence in it, where why are we still doing this work this way? And I know it still happens, but it's information that we could take and kind of capitalize on by saying, if this lives in the model, we have all this information at our disposal where we can eliminate this group of people going out doing all this rudimentary layout on the floor, and so we try that at a hospital project, that we did, the Madison Geary project, and we had some hiccups with it, but ultimately it came down to trust, having the right details in the model, making sure we have the current model, and then all the tolerances that we discussed live in that model and are taken into consideration. And you can almost eliminate a scope of work that normally you see on every job. Again, it requires people to buy into it, to believe in it, and then to continue to improve it so that you don't have catastrophes, because when you have small errors, they become really big problems when you do that type of work. But when you win, it's also equally advantageous and really helps you move things a lot faster.
Yeah, it's really hard to get people who are generally not collaborative to begin with to tell you that they made a mistake someplace, because they always think they can come in over the weekend and fix it. Or they always think that somehow it'll go unnoticed, or it'll just show up in the punch list or something. So it really is, like you pointed out, I think it's the ability to have the conversation, because the ability to have the conversation allows you to at least understand kind of where they're coming from.
Right.
And the best thing I think about the last planner system, especially when you do it with stickies on the wall, I'm still a big believer in stickies on the wall, because you are making a declaration in your own handwriting that you're committing to do something. And that declaration is public because you walk up to the board and you put it up there. And your head's not down in some computer, just making something up. You're actually making a statement. It's an activity of politics in many ways that I think is very important. But it's so funny that I think when I've seen, I think this was the mechanical trade on a job, they just started putting stickies on the wall, and they didn't care what anybody else did. It was in a superintendent meeting, and this guy just got up from his place at the table, and he got some boards up there, and he just started putting his work on the wall. And when the superintendent got to him, it was usually, the superintendent meetings are, hey, Henry, anything going wrong? No, everything's all right. Hey, Jacob, anything going wrong? Hey, Billy, hey, Billy.
Yeah.
And you're going around this aircraft carrier that is so uncollaborative. And so this guy just started putting stickies on the wall. So he said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I just want to let you guys know what my work is over the next few weeks, so that you can tell me if I'm in your way, or if there's something you need me to do for you, or what. And they're all going, Wow. And I just happened to be there in the trailer, and it was very cool. So I think starting that conversation, letting people know that they are not, like Will Lichtig has said, hopeless victims of fate.
Yeah.
It's my favorite line of his. But they can actually kind of take control of how they do their work. I remember when I was in Dallas after the Parkland Hospital job, which was a really great job. A number of the trades that were on that job would call me up and say, look, we'll pay for you to come to this job, whether the contractor pays you or not, because we love this system. And I think when it gets, it's infectious, that kind of collaboration.
Oh yeah, it's just, that's one of the beauties of the last planner system. And, I know that there are people that struggle with that, and it makes, it's so complex and so hard, right? And really it's more of a behavioral tool than anything. And you learn, like as Dan Fauché has said so many times, and I agree 100%, that it's the magic that happens at the board. And that's where technology does not allow for that to happen to some degree. You lose a little bit of that. And when you get folks that can stand next to each other and start discussing how they're going to do their work and how someone else is a part of how they get their work done, how they actually execute successfully or not. And then you begin to have those conversations that you just wouldn't have. You would have those conversations when you have clashes in the field and you say, oh, oops, here we are. Now what do we do? And so now you can have those preventative conversations and talk about what we're going to do, what you need from someone else. Just as simple as that. And just as easy as that seems, it's still a big challenge for people to really understand that magical thing that happens there at that board that is preventing all this extra stuff that's going to happen. And this reminds me of a person, a counselor that I used to go to every once in a while, and he was talking about marriages, and he was considered as the relationship killer, is what he was coined at. But what he was actually doing was preventing divorces, because he was talking to people about what they needed to talk about and discuss before they came together. So it's kind of like Last Planner is helping us prevent all the catastrophe that's going to happen out in the field. Now that ducts and electrical racks are clashing or whatever, because we didn't have a discussion on the plan of action, we just went out there willy-nilly and just hope for the best. And that's how this industry has been forged for so many decades, of just go out and do it, figure it out, and learn as you go. And we didn't, and we just got angry, and everybody's hostile and contentious, and we die early, and it's a hostile environment.
Yeah, and all those conversations happen behind a finger, right? That's
well,
and it's all the finger pointing, and this was your fault, not my fault, and and the territoriality continues,
right,
in those kinds of conversations. So I think you're absolutely right that just spreading that conversation, having an idea of what people are doing, the work that sheet metal mechanics do is complicated, right? There's a whole series of runs that are going around the building, and there's lots of different ways that you could do it, and there's different kinds of systems you could put in. You could put in a glycol system that is heating and cooling in an ambient way. You do all kinds of different things. But then when you get up next to the electrician, and the electrician has a complicated system as well, because she's trying to figure out whether it goes to these electrical rooms or where it could go from here or there, and it's dangerous. You stick a screwdriver in there, and when those two things are happening, so just think of the myriad of things that happen all at the same time that are complicated. So that makes construction complex, and unless you can have those conversations and manage that together, manage your assumptions together, it becomes chaotic.
Right.
And you're always just this far away from chaos, Yeah. And so I think, so in addition to the Last Planner system, what else do you love about some of the lean tools that you have used out there? Which are the ones that you use most often to help people get those aha moments?
I think the 5S system is one that, it's not just about, it's not about just keeping things clean, but it's creating order and keeping that order. And so when people find ways to understand where their parts and pieces live, when you should having systems that help you understand when you need to resupply your system, whether it's your truck, your van, your tool room, and creating ways to remove the treasure hunts that we create in our industry and our game boxes and things like that. So it's the one thing that I remember when I was teaching a class, an introductory class on lean tools, and one of them was the 5S system. And I talked to I gave the group a homework assignment. I said, I want you to go out and go to work the next day and figure out something that you can change and improve, and then come back and tell us about it. So this one apprentice went to his job site, and he was the person that was responsible for laying out all the cords and getting all this stuff set up for all the teams around the project. And he would spend half a day just setting people up. So he said, you know what? I went back to work and I asked my foreman, is it okay if I just get everybody set up at the same time and just knock it out in one point? And so he did that, and he said it would save him, like maybe that took 2 hours before, it may have took 4 to 6 hours, where he was able to spend more time with his mechanic and learning his trade just by implementing a different way of getting things rolled out in the job. And so he has had this way of how he created order for himself to make his jobs easier, but at the same time and efficient, but then it created an opportunity for him to learn something more than just doing some rudimentary stringing out extension cords or getting people's tools and all that. He just found a way to do that faster, and it benefited him, which is a great thing.
It's funny, I was giving a lecture at École Technologie Supérieure in Montreal a couple of weeks ago. And while I was waiting to get in front of the class, the teacher was explaining 5S in French, which I thought was really interesting. But it gave me some perspective on 5S. And I started thinking about it as really a way that you could organize the entire lean operating system. You could even organize your life that way. And then being up on LinkedIn, Jennifer Lacey and Jesus Hernandez are writing this thing about organizing your life around 5S. So many of these things we do have resonance outside of just construction and what we do. And it's not about necessarily telling Victor Zambito to put a piece of tape on his desk that says tape, so he knows where his tape dispenser is, but he probably wishes he had one of those every time he's looking for scissors. I mean, I have 30 pairs of scissors in my house because I never know where they are. Yeah. And I could really benefit from 5S in my life. Yeah. So this has been great. Let's turn a little bit to the Lean Construction Institute and the work that you're doing there. Okay. And what is your, I had Rebecca and Bernita on about a month or so ago about their various chairmanships and the things they wanted to do. And Bernita, of course, wanted to focus more on design, and Rebecca wanted to focus more on kind of, general organization throughout the country as the leading spokesman for the trades. What would you like to do? And as just Henry Nutt III, in the Bay Area, what are the issues that you see, for your kids, for the industry, and what would you like to leverage your position at LCI to help do?
Yeah, one of the things that I appreciate the question is obviously it's driven by the trades, and I felt like being on the board, it was an honor, but I knew that I needed to do something that, one, affected my day job and something that I was very passionate about, and that has been, evangelizing trades, and so I lead a task force. It's a trade partner task force. It's comprised of an electrician group, a framing group, a consultant that helps us kind of pull things together, and we're looking for more folks as well to be a part of it. So we have the major kind of MEPs along with Framer in there, and we discuss how our work is going, and identifying those things that have been problematic in our trade for centuries, essentially, it feels like, and creating opportunities to bring people in. So we've created a website, YouTube page that's affiliated with LCI that gives people an opportunity to put together like a 2 to 4 minute video to talk about improvement. So we felt like the trades were kind of like the stepchild when it comes to Congress every year. The numbers of folks that really attend and feel like they extract something that benefits them when they go back to their respective places of work. And we needed to improve that and give people more experiences regarding the trades and the impact, because we make up 80% of the job sites, you know. So we felt like we have been having a GC on that task force as well. So we've been talking for the last couple of years and putting together ideas and murals, and we finally decided that creating this YouTube page would be a way to kind of cast this wide net for LCI members and non-LCI members, really and generally, just to say, hey, show us some stuff you're doing. And we want to promote it. We want to see it. We want to learn from it. And then from that, maybe we can begin to take some of those ideas and partner with people, go visit some web job sites, introduce people to the Lean Construction Institute, and just kind of raise the bar, as well as open the arms and embrace more people to say, hey, we want to be your #1 source for learning when it comes to Lean. And here's one of the ways that we're going to do that is really, one, showcase what people are doing around the country, because there's so many positive stories. As many times as we hear some of the negative things that are going on in construction, there still are things that are going well. And we want to promote that. And we want people to see it and comment on it and have discussions about it like we see going on. So that's kind of the focus we have right now. And we have a host of other things that we're going to be working on. But that's one of the big projects that we put on. And so primarily focused on just this group of people with like minds that represent the trades, and how we can begin to do better in our work and support each other, and expose what we're doing out there.
So how does somebody find that YouTube page?
So if you went to LCI website, it's called the Daily Huddle, and you can go to LCI's website, LCI.org's webpage, and type in that, or you can even go into YouTube and go to the Daily Huddle, and it should pop up. And
Awesome.
So we're beginning to put videos on there. So it's not a bunch of them on there yet, but we are getting to populate the site with videos, as well as putting together a kind of landing page that says, here's what this is about. So it's really in its stage right now, but we're excited about it and really think it's going to take off, because we found that YouTube is the place where people go to learn more than anything else. We did a survey with some of our trade partners and found out, if I want to ask a question about something and learn something, where do I go to find that? And YouTube is, if you want to help build, you want to learn how to put your garage together, you can do that, So this is where we felt was the best platform to use, and we're going to see how that works for us.
All right, I'll find the link and I'll put it up on our little podcast information page so people can go there.
Awesome.
Because I think that sounds so cool, because we constantly on a lot of IPD projects here in Canada, and one of the things we do at the project management team meeting every month, we tend to have a PMT meeting once a month, then we have a core group that kind of runs stuff in the middle, but we do an innovation moment. And so I can share that with folks, because where was Paul Graben before he had his 2-second lean, right? Until he started doing those little videos, people were all over it. And certainly some of the things that I'm constantly searching for, the PowerPoints you've shared with me, and I've changed computers about 6 times. I can never find them. And so I'm sure that I can find some of that stuff there. Hopefully you're putting up the toilet one and the one about the, one of the ones I thought was really interesting. I think this was a discussion you and I had about not putting down the bottom track when you were framing a building, because it made it so much easier for your plumbers to get their stuff through, and then you could wrap the bottom track around it. But just interesting, innovative ideas. So what's next for you? What's your next big project, other than getting your daughter she's on the Princeton soccer team, or she's playing for Team USA or something down the line? Other than family stuff, what's new? What's next for you in the business?
Well, what's next for me is I'm in the middle of, well, I'll say the middle, I'm in the tail end of getting a book published. It's been in the works for probably a decade,
Awesome.
and that's due to my own negligence. But finally, and it's related to construction, but it's more so focused on workforce development. And so it will be designed to probably more of a short manual than I'd say a book, but it's designed to work with these organizations that are promoting folks from all walks of life to get into construction. So the pre-apprenticeship programs that typically are nonprofit organizations, it's a book that I could hand to the instructors or the students to identify their own barriers to entry, and how they think about getting into the trade, and some of the basic things I could say I've learned from my mother and father that not necessarily common for everyone. And so when you think about reasons why people get fired, and I'm focusing on construction, but why you can last day one and that's it, you're done. How do you identify your own areas of necessary growth to be successful in the trade? So we've done this for years at Southland, going to these different nonprofit organizations to talk about that, bring in foremen and hey, here's what the day in the life looks like. Here's what I would expect from you. So I put together 7 principles that I think really make it. They're not just for construction, but this is really focused on that. Of how to be successful and creating your own success in the trades by identifying mindsets that prevent you from being successful. So it's kind of
awesome. Yeah, I've had about 20 books in the works for about 40 years. So I understand the kind of overall inertia. I mean, it really is, a hand at rest tends to stay at rest, right? Unless you're writing.
Yes.
But if you need somebody to read it and write a forward to it, I'm happy to do it. I do that on a regular basis. So
awesome.
Sounds like a really great endeavor. So Henry, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
For helping us out. You are the namesake for my second son. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. You and Henry Aaron, two pioneers in your own way out there blazing the trail. Thanks for all the really great work that you've done. Thanks, especially, you just have such a great, joyful attitude about what it is you do. And you were just electric. And so thanks for sharing that with the podcast.
I appreciate it, Dick. Thank you for the time. It's been great.
We'll see you down the road. Thanks, Henry.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lean Construction Blogs podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us spread the word by sharing, subscribing, or leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. Remember to join us next time as we continue to lower the barriers to applying lean construction and help take your lean journey to the next level. And don't forget to visit the Lean Construction blog to stay up to date on our latest podcast episodes, weekly blog posts, monthly webinars, and upcoming conferences. We hope to see you on the next episode.